Okay. We'll roll right into the council meeting of March 6th of 2023. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda amended to include a brief statement presentation by our MLA, Emilie, which would be A under presentations. Would that be all right? Okay, could I have that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. On favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Okay. Miss Dean, Minister Dean, please. I imagine this has something to do with a grant.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for accommodating me. I'm just on my way home from the Ledge, and I know our resident Jennifer spoke to this earlier on, but I was really pleased and excited to be able to call you, Mayor, and advise you of the Growing Community Grant, which for Metchosin is around about $2.4 million. And as a province, we really want to work in partnership with municipalities. We've been hearing from municipalities either they were growing really quickly, which, as you know, our provincial government supports. We've got a housing crisis. And of course that leads to infrastructure needs. The other thing we've been hearing was a lot of infrastructure across the province was ageing as well, and of course in a time where people are struggling with the cost of living, we know that municipalities are taking those demands and financial pressures very seriously as well. So we know that each municipality has needs that they've identified. We know that you know our community best. You talk to residents in our community, you live here, you know what is needed in our community, and so you will be getting a letter that outlines this grant that is designed for local infrastructure, recognising either ageing infrastructure or growing pressures, but really to support you in serving our community and making sure that that we can continue to make sure that we have the beautiful community that we do have here in Metchosin, and that our local infrastructure is there to support the heart of our community and our community activities.
Okay, great. And thank you very much. We really appreciate not having to go through the grant process. We really appreciate that it was universal throughout UBC or about across BC, and we were able to get a significant grant that is very significant for a small community of 5,067. So thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? I know we're getting more details towards the end of this month. That's great. Anybody have any specific questions, concerns? Okay, with that, thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Eck would like to ask a question.
I was just wondering how, you mentioned a few things that we can use the grant for, but how specific is it going to be?
It isn't specific because the province really acknowledges and recognises that you as Mayor and Council know the community really well. So you'll get something in writing that will probably give a list of some examples. And I know across my constituency there are lots of different things like protective services building, bridges going over roads, active transportation. So there's a range of different types of community infrastructure that it can be used for. And some of your neighbours want to do some work on sewage, for example. So I think you've already been in the capital budgeting process. You already know what some of your priorities are. And you'll get a letter with a lot more detail, just with some examples of the kinds of things that we think that you'd probably be interested in spending on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Good evening.
Okay, so we have another presentation. Thank you, Minister Dean. We have another presentation by Emilie de Rosenroll, and you're the Executive Director of the South Island Prosperity Partnership. So welcome, and you've got a PowerPoint presentation for us.
I do, yes. Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's exciting to go on the heels of such a positive announcement. And I believe I have 10 minutes. I just want to double check. Is that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. So it's very exciting to be here because we've been established for about 7 years, the South Island Prosperity Partnership, but we haven't actually been here. So really a pleasure to be here and be invited to present and tell you a little bit about who we are and what we've been doing and how we'd love to work with you. So I'm Emilie de Rosenroll, and I'm the Executive Director of the South Island Prosperity Partnership. And in 10 minutes, I'll have time just to kind of give you an opening around what we've been doing, just an introduction, and love to have more conversations in the future if we want to dive into anything. So, not working. It's probably me, but the arrow should work, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay.
I'm happy to sit and flip.
Your little stick wasn't it?
Yeah.
The other part. No.
I can even do it without slides if it's not going to work. But okay, in the meantime, so that we don't ruin everyone's night here and take up too much time, I'll tell you a little bit about South Island Prosperity Partnership, which began in 2016 as a partnership of municipalities of the region, of the South Island region, First Nation governments, the 3 post-secondaries of our region, many industry and business associations, and the largest employers of the region. So we today have over 75 members, all coming together to build more resilience and inclusion and sustainability in the regional economy. We do that through, oh, it's gonna work. Okay, great. So I don't know how that magic worked, but before I do get going, I would of course like to acknowledge that we're very grateful to be doing our work in the South Island on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen people, the Saanich nations, including Sayib, Sartlip, Sakim, Pakwachin, as well as Malahat and the Chianu and South nations. And as I mentioned, we're a public-private partnership dedicated to long-term economic development to be able to grow social prosperity for current and also future generations. I won't go through this, but our constitutional purpose was actually established after many dozens of hours put in by councillors across the region of the South Island. So it was your sort of compatriots that put this together and really were very putting a lot of effort around the verbiage used. So the idea is diversifying and strengthening the regional economy, maximizing the amount of provincial and federal investments that come into a region, raising the profile of the South Island as a location of choice for new business and business growth, as well as engaging with Indigenous peoples and the nations, the First Nations, to be able to engage them in self-directed economic development. And I've kind of already reviewed this. This is sort of our membership structure. We have now over 70 members. We started with just 29, so it's grown quite a bit in the last 7 years. And where we originally began as an entity, where we sort of were born out of, was out of the Great Recession. Our region really didn't rebound very quickly as an economy. And so people at that time, about 2015, well after the recession of 08-09, started to realize that our economy wasn't bouncing back, and other regions of similar size across Canada had rebounded more quickly. And so what came to happen is that people looked into what actually was going on beneath the surface of the economy and found that other places in Canada were investing quite a lot, in North America, in their economic development. And the South Island as a region was at about 25 cents per capita. The national average was more like $15.50 per capita for areas of our sort of size. But of course, some of this is about understanding how the economy regionally works and works with those constituent parts. And so what we were able to do is kind of map out some of the larger employers of the region and just demonstrate that actually we're very connected as an economy. And you can see from this picture here that where we work and where we live are generally very different places. So we mapped this out, and you could see a sort of spider web of activity. And unlike, we also mapped out and other images that I have that just show you actually how much from the West Shore people are actually driving to other parts, of the peninsula, of course, and also people coming from those places to come into the West Shore for work. So it's whether it's great to stimulate more business in our local municipality, but you always kind of have this spider web of activity. So it's important we recognize we're reliant on one another. And then, how we summed it up back in 2016 is, but why do you want to diversify the economy? And ultimately, it comes down to one statement, right? So the kids can come home for dinner on Sunday nights is what we sort of we're playing around with. And the idea is it's pretty simple. We want our kids to be able to get jobs here or start a business here and not have to move away to the mainland or to Toronto. heaven forbid we have to go to Toronto to visit our grandkids. So and here you can see year over year, we have measured our impact and reported on our impact. So you can go to our website and look at these reports year over what we've been doing. This chart just shows you we've created a really strong foundation. So if you see the purple chart, the purple bar, that is actually municipal funding, which has stayed relatively stable throughout the 7 years. But because of having that sort of core foundation, we're now able to leverage this green line, which is the project funding. So we're able to layer on top of that and start attracting that provincial and federal extra investment to the region that wouldn't have been possible without that municipal contribution in the beginning. So you can kind of see pretty clearly in this graph is that things are kind of taking flight, and we've really actually got quite a boost since the pandemic. So that brings me to the next slide, and I'm sure I won't have time for all my slides, but recovery through the pandemic. So unlike where we were at during 2016 when we had the sort of Great Recession and we took a while to rebound, the pandemic, this was a crisis where we had the sort of social capital, the networks already there. And so within a matter of 2 weeks, we had formed a group called the Rising Economy Task Force, which was a group of 120 people from across all the areas of our economy. So from the Indigenous economy, skills and education, ocean and marine, retail and restaurant, transportation, agriculture, etc., all the way across, and we were able to say what would really move the needle and move us from relief to building recovery and more resilience in the economy. And so we had, a mountain of recommendations which we drilled into the top areas, and they really informed a lot of our work over the last 3 years. So this was this report that we worked on, and it was really informed by a huge multitude and cross-section of the South Island economy, and allowed us to do things like see when you look at all those trends, what comes up. And so we were able to also provide information on how exactly our local economy was being impacted by the pandemic and the lockdown measures in a way that Ottawa needed to know about, or provincial government needed to know about. So we actually worked quite a bit with Mitzi, for example, on distilling up that information so that the stimulus funding could actually be targeted on our region. So that's sort of what South Island Prosperity Partnership allows, is us to kind of augment our voices to be able to make sure that economic development is working for us on the ground level. And we came up, as a community, this is a massive endeavor actually. This is the economic recovery strategy called Reboot, also available online if you're interested. And here, just a smattering of things that came out of it. We've been hosting this conference called Rising Economy. It's open to the public. It's been 3 years now that we've had it, and it's been a way to get our regional thought leadership out there, and also a lot of people to come to our region who normally don't come here. And so to bring that, make that very accessible has been the objective. And as part of that, we've had something called Local Leadership Day, bringing in, this past year, we actually had over 90 attendees, and I believe there was about 60 elected officials. And we have an ongoing engagement with our municipal partners, a monthly meeting to be able to look at what's going on in everybody's municipality as well, and share best practice. And the Indigenous Prosperity is a really important project that we're very proud of. We now have established this. This has also emerged from the Reboot strategy. It's a nonprofit supporting Indigenous-led economic development, and really about supporting Indigenous-led vision of where they want to take their economy, how we can spread those benefits out more broadly. So it's looking at things like training and upskilling, lots of different projects. And this is our new executive director, Christina Clark, who was supposed to be here with me today, but she has COVID. But she's wonderful. She's been actually on our board since 2016, a real advocate for regional economic development and Indigenous engagement in the economy. And then the other flagship project is COAST, the Center of Ocean Applied Sustainable Technologies. Bit of a mouthful. What we learned from the economic reboot strategy is that no one, well, I was not aware, but 75% of ocean technology companies live or reside on Vancouver Island. So we have this mountain of assets and companies that are really dedicated to this clean technology that's looking at how do we get into the ocean and make things like shipping more sustainable. How do we decarbonize shipping? How do we monitor territory in the case of Indigenous communities? And the vision here is really about Coast becoming Pacific Canada's hub for the sustainable blue economy. I do not have time to go through this, so I'm going to highlight. We have an executive director. He's moving from Australia here. He'll start in April. We've got lots of programming already being delivered. It's a very exciting time, actually, for our whole region. And we just want to thank you for the opportunity to introduce ourselves and to be here. Metchosin is a critical part of our region. And the West Shore is a voice that is really a critical part in so many ways to the regional economy. So we'd like to thank you for the time and the opportunity and hope to be able to have more opportunities to engage.
Okay, great. Does anybody on the committee have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Thanks, Emily. Sorry, thanks, Emily. One thing, just to clarify, you said something about 75% of people who are involved in ocean-related technology are here. 75% of what?
75% of all the ocean technology companies in British Columbia reside on Vancouver Island, with quite a majority in the South Island area. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. And then we have institutions too, like Ocean Networks Canada, which is a very large research and development group. We have the Navy, the Coast Guard, so a whole bunch of these kind of assets that cause a lot of business development around there.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering what you see as anything specific to Metchosin that this partnership might contribute to.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So partly what I would do is I would invite the dialogue. So first I think it's about understanding what the priorities are and then how we can help those. So as an example, I know agriculture is very important here. What we can do is often add the ability to attract additional resources or tell a story. We do a lot of thought leadership work, do a lot of work where we're inviting, for example, on housing and affordability, we're doing some work in that area. We've also were able to access the funding that put together a study on an abattoir feasibility study around looking at the huge gap actually to be able to for farmers to actually be able to
process.
Thank you for the right word. Process their meat. And so that is actually now that report's now completed. We worked with the Ministry of Agriculture on that, and now I believe Mill Bay Farm is acting upon that work, and the consultants have continued on to support that farm on that work. So those are the kinds of things where we're a convener, and we can also help develop a business case, convene, identify resources, but we want to work hand in hand. We don't come in and sort of have all the solutions by any stretch. It's really about accelerating groups of willing people.
Go ahead.
Just one more, and what does this cost?
Oh, it's a very good question. I don't have those figures here, but I can send them to you. It would be somebody on my team that would have that information. Fortunately, I had my colleague who had COVID, and then I couldn't get anybody else at the last minute to come with me. I know they worked out those numbers. It's a mixture of per capita with a gas tax. So for the population size, it would be rather modest. So the other interesting thing is that those numbers, no matter what they are, unlike the CRD, it's one municipality, one member, one vote. So that's always been something very attractive to the smaller municipalities, is that there's complete equality of voice. But in terms of the actual price dollars, I won't. It's not outrageous though. I'm sorry, I can't be more specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah.
I noticed in your constitutional purpose that the last item is creating local economic resilience by prioritizing climate mitigation and adaptation opportunities. But I also noticed that you didn't mention once, except for with reference to the COAST program.
Yeah.
Anything about the using the environmental lens or the climate mitigation lens in your work, and in a time of climate crisis?
Yeah.
I'm concerned about conventional approaches to business that do not look at things through the climate crisis lens, and as a result, don't contribute to
Yeah.
and so on. Could you comment on that, please?
Probably not very quickly, but I'll give you some highlights because it's a huge topic and it's super important. So we do it through a number of different ways. One, the blue economy, as it's known, is actually all about sustainability. So it's about pursuing kind of oceans are on the frontier of in a lot of ways of the climate crisis, because they're absorbing most of the carbon, all kinds of sort of natural disasters and the higher frequency of climate issues. A lot of that's ocean related. A lot of it's about too much water, not enough water, drought or tsunami, etc. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's all going on in the ocean space, including from sustainable fisheries to using kelp as a carbon sink, carbon sequestration to be able to reduce our problems. So there's a lot there. I could kind of go on for too long probably about how we're trying to help these technologies that are going to, and these companies really, and be able to implement them to be able to address the challenges. We've got projects, for example, in renewable energy around tidal. Like to do offshore wind at some point. So lots of things that are, and wave energy is another one, to help communities. There's one project where we'd like to help First Nation communities come off diesel and replace it with a local kind of renewable energy source. So I'd say we're actually doing a lot. Also on the Indigenous side, that typically is already embedded in their worldview. So the ocean economy is really a way of thinking about monitoring and stewarding the territory. So there's quite a lot of interest in doing anything related to that, whether it's monitoring for species health, or it could be around clean shipping or around the species item. There's lots of opportunities. So those are some of the ways, and then my last statement is just that we're very different than most economic development organizations in that we don't believe in unbridled growth. It's really about making sure there are household sustaining jobs, that we have, we can attract doctors, that's important. It's not necessarily about growth for growth's sake or just relentlessly chasing GDP, which is what we kind of hear about. So I think we're a little bit different in that way, that from the very start we've been about the quality of growth, not the quantity of growth.
Okay, well that's helpful, thank you,
Yeah.
and encouraging. However, I know that you have talked eloquently and convincingly about the one sector, the ocean-related sector.
Yeah.
But land-based economic activities can be either enacted through the climate change lens or not, and I don't know to what extent
We're probably not
engaging in that.
We do more like workforce work, more sort of strategic projects. We used to work quite a bit in smart cities work, which was about helping with multimodal integration, so moving from bike to car to different modes, and so that really was about environmental as well as business opportunities. So I'd say small. We're talking about an organization that normally is just 7 people, and now we're adding these project people. So we do what we can, but typically it's around kind of strategic areas of interest where there's a coalition of interested parties to further something. We don't really do anything in isolation. We work a lot with the post-secondaries too, so training and workforce development is really important to us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
pleasure.
Thank you. You've done
Yeah.
a lot since 2016. Amazing. Thank you very much for your
Thanks
presentation.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for listening.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to carry on with public participation. Does anybody have any comments for public participation?
Thank you very much. Stephen Sawyer, 1498 Neald Road. While I'm speaking, my voice may crack a little bit. That's as a result of some prescription medication I'm taking, so if it does crack, I apologize in advance. Everything posted on social media can be discovered, even by those who are not intended to see it. Specifically, I'm talking about previous budget comments that I sent in an email to Mayor and Council. And being dismissed by one of you as coming from an employee of Valley Limousines. Rather than take umbrage at that, I thought I'd like to take a little bit of time and briefly introduce myself so you get to know one more resident of Metchosin. I spent 41 years in the Canadian Army as an infantry officer. Quand j'ai pris ma retraite, j'étais lieutenant-colonel. Je parle les deux langues officielles du Canada et un peu d'allemand. Ich spreche English, Französisch und ein bisschen Deutsch. And given time, I can also speak a few phrases of Arabic. I've lived in 3 countries on 3 different continents. I've also served in 8 other countries. I've called 6 provinces home, and I've been in all of the others, including north of the Arctic Circle. I joined during the Cold War and spent the first 12 years of my service studying and preparing to fight armies of the Warsaw Pact along with our NATO allies. I've been in infantry battalions of the regular force in ranks from second lieutenant to major, and transferred to the reserve force where I was eventually promoted to lieutenant colonel. I've commanded soldiers for most of my life, and at the apex of my time in uniform, exercised authority over almost 500 of them. I'm far from being a stupid man, and I'm certainly not a marionette of my current employer. I've got a significant amount of experience in a wide variety of public service, from being in combat units to headquarters at the unit level, to the national level in Ottawa, and to the international level while serving in Egypt. Don't judge me based on my current employer. I sit on 4 boards, a foundation, an endowment fund, a trust, and a nonprofit society, and I'm on the executive of 2 of them. Please don't dismiss me as easily as one of you already has. Included in my extensive experience as an employee of the federal government, I've had input into the spending of public money. I've been a budget manager of budgets that exceed that of the District of Metchosin. And I've had a lot of experience in cutting spending to meet the fiscal realities of the government of the day of both political stripes. Watching the video of your budget meeting of 6 February, it's clear to me from that meeting that you have no intention of reducing the municipal budget to meet the fiscal realities of many Metchosin residents, and frankly, I'm appalled by the lack of leadership in this regard. Given about 12 hours of work, I can redo your budget for you and keep the tax increases to 2% of last year. I'm willing to do that work for free, but really, that's your job and the district of staff. Let's not consider the dollar amount increase to me and my neighbors. Let us consider percentages. 11.7% increase is unacceptable. You need to reevaluate your priorities and reduce that percentage dramatically. Additionally, you need to reject budget submissions by non-elected entities that exceed 2% of the previous year. You can do that. You can force them to go back to the drawing board and redo it. Even better, those of you who represent the district on the various boards can do your jobs and make sure that the budgets are acceptable before they even get submitted to all the municipalities. A limit of a 2% increase should be the goal. Anything else should be unacceptable. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Sherry Rourke, Rocky Point Road. This probably would have been better at the Finance Committee, but I'll state it now. I just wanted to thank Council again for your hard work on conducting a thorough review of our budget. As someone who's been able to attend a handful of those meetings, I can attest that they have been line by line dissections. They've been long meetings. I've taken the time to look at other increases that have been released through media on other local governments, and I've yet to see a decrease in any community, and I've seen them as high as 27% increases here in this province. Many of them are averaging between 11 and 17%, a lot towards the 17%. When I think about that, I think 11.5 is probably a pretty fair increase. I think it's important for residents to know that our inflation increase this year is 7.2% as set by the CPI. So given that, if we don't change anything, if we don't need anything else, that's the minimum increase we're really looking at. So trying to ask you to achieve the same result we had last year without that 7.2% is unrealistic. As much as we would all not like to see tax increases, I don't think that's a fair request of our council. At the end of the day, our revenue and expenditure budgets have to reflect our current realities. We've had supply chain issues, you guys have spoken in the past about what those, the pressure is on our budget, so, I think it's understandable. And we have limited funding resources, so, it's understandable that residential is likely to have bear the largest portion of the cost, but maybe there's room for council to look at our mill rates on the other sources of income for taxation, business, industrial, farming, and maybe, we can see a smaller increase on our residential rate with a little bit more of a substantial increase on those other sources. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none, thank you for that, everybody. We'll move to page 13, the adoption of the minutes. So first we're going to have the council meeting of February 6th. I'll entertain a motion for adoption of the minutes.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson, Councillor Donaldson. Comment, concerns, call the question, all in favor? Opposed, carried. The special council meeting of February 27th on page 19.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. And the receipt of the minutes. Moving to page 21. Councillor Donaldson, did you want to speak to this one?
Yes, thank you. This is the minutes from the special Finance Committee budget meeting of February 6th. Overall, we had very good conversations regarding the operating budget, including constructive comments from the public, and we continue to. So this is important for us to know which direction to go. I also like to thank the Deputy Corporate Officer for taking such good minutes. Thank you, Ina. Could I ask if we could,
So the motion to receive the minutes?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, so moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Schuken. Anybody else want to comment? No? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So the Finance Committee meeting of February 6th.
Yes, thank you. We had, at this meeting, we had very enthusiastic
Presentation?
input regarding the importance of the CRD arts in our community and the culture program, arts and culture program that they provide throughout the region and in Metchosin. Metchosinites are very passionate about the arts and culture, not specific just to what's happening in our own community, but everywhere. And the presentation that we got was fantastic. And so Mayor Alto and Mr. Gilpin, I think his name was, came out and did a very quick overview of what they do offer.
Okay, so move receipt?
Yes, please.
Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and this is the Community Planning Committee meeting. Councillor Schuken.
I would just move adoption, move receipt, please.
Okay, move receipt by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Concerns, comments? No? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving right along to the Environment Natural Areas Committee meeting of February 13th.
Chair, I move receipt of the minutes of February 13th Environment and Natural Areas Committee meeting.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? No? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. So the Public Works meeting of February 13th. Councillor Epp.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Any comments? No? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Have we got all of them?
One more, I think.
One more. Yes, that's the Special Planning Committee meeting of February 21st.
Thanks, and this was the joint meeting with Council and the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee, and lots of good discussion. I have reviewed the minutes, and I've asked the chair, Mark Atherton, if he had any comments on the minutes, and he had none. He thought it was they were reflective of the discussion, so I would move receipt.
Okay, moved by Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Epp. Comment? It was a great meeting. It was a really good meeting. I hope we can have that with the other advisory select committees. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. So, moving to the Risen report. We have a Risen report that Ryan Carter has been appointed to the Parks and Trails Select Advisory Committee Coordinator position. It's a volunteer position. So I'd like to thank Mr. Carter for putting his name forward and to congratulate him. He'll have a really good time with the Parks and Trails Committee and with Councillor Shukin as well, being the council liaison. Okay, so Mayor's report. So I had lots prepared on the Growing Communities Funds. Mitzi Dean, Minister Dean spoke to that very eloquently. We're very grateful. I think it's a great bonus for Metchosin to have this windfall of over $2.4 million for infrastructure and aging capital projects. I think this is really wonderful. So we'll get more direction from the province within the next few weeks, and then we can discuss what our priorities will be for that money. My mayor's report is on page 47. The BC Rural Healthcare Alliance. This is a team of mayors across BC that are talking about rural issues, rural healthcare issues. Their mission is to educate and advocate on behalf of rural citizens. The group is currently comparing roles, their notes, developing terms of reference, and they're seeking to be solution-oriented. They don't want to point any fingers. And the group is led by the Grand Forks Mayor, Everett Baker. Our first meeting was February 5th. It was really good to talk about rural issues with other rural mayors. The Local Government Leadership Academy, Councillor Donaldson had already spoken about that, but I just wanted to say thank you to the taxpayers for allowing us to attend these meetings, especially for a new council, where you can pick up some of the information and valuable education regarding how to be part of a team and the legislation. So, okay. Moving on to the Victoria Regional, there's a mistake here. I said land. I don't know why I was thinking Land Transit Commission. So I've been asked by the Honourable Rob Fleming, he's the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, to sit on the board for the Victoria Regional Transit Commission. And the commission was appointed by the Lieutenant Governor, Janet Austin, on February 13th. I sit on the commission with other mayors and a councillor, Mayor Tate from Souk is the chair of the committee. And the VRTC determines transit routes and services levels in the Victoria Regional Transit Service. It sets fares, reviews budgets, raises local share funding from regional motor fuel and property taxes. We've already had an orientation session. And the next will be reviewing the operational budget, and the operational budget's over 100 million. It's really complex, but really quite fun. There was an announcement today, this morning, that they are having a operator and worker appreciation day, which is March 18th. They're inviting the public to comment between now and March 18th regarding their stories, regarding their experience on BC Transit. So I encourage all of our members to write in their stories regarding BC Transit, culminating on March 18th with an appreciation day for operators and workers of BC Transit. And then the final item was the coldest night of the year. So thank you everybody for joining me. As I mentioned before, last year I walked it alone, and this year there was all of us and some community members. It was a great night. We were able to raise over $2,700 for the soup shelter. It was a great time. So thank you very much. Okay, that's it for my mayor's report. Business arising, page 49 of your agenda. So this is business arising from minutes. Councillor Donaldson, did you want to take this one?
Sure. This is in regards to the Central Saanich Food Hub's feasibility study, and it was shared with the Agriculture Advisory Select Committee recently, where they did have a discussion about whether it was something valuable that we might consider here in Metchosin. I think it's fair to say that we're not ready for something like that. Having said that, this was a very large study. A lot of money went into this for Central Saanich, and Saanich is also doing something similar, and it's more about processing foods. What the Ag Committee did cite was the biggest challenge is the competition of the marketplace. A lot of people still aren't identifying buying local from farmers, and even some of the local grocery stores are no longer engaging with farmers either. So it's a change in the marketplace. So we will, as an Ag Committee, again, as everyone knows, we're looking at some point putting together an agricultural plan, and there was some valuable information in the document. So it's hopeful that we'll be able to implement some of that, but certainly more conducive to what is Metchosin grown, especially with having the urbanization close to our borders. So that is our marketplace to educate and share about local food and food security, that sort of thing.
Okay, great. Thanks for that explanation. So that this motion is that Council refer the Central Saanich Food Hub's feasibility study to the Ag Committee for their comment. Right, that's already been done.
It has already been done, yes.
Okay, we should still vote on it just to keep the record straight.
Yes. Okay.
So the motion is from Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. I know we've already done it, but this is how we do things. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. On page 51, this is the Community Planning Committee recommendations.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little, and thank you very much to Council for working with me through the planning and conceptualizing of the working group on the future of the bufferland. And with that, I would like to move that Council approve the proposed terms of reference for the bufferland working group, and that Council direct staff to post notice on the District of Metchosin website that Council is seeking citizen membership for the working group.
Okay, and the terms of reference are on page 52 and 53 and 54 of the agenda. Okay?
Yep.
So that's moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, and through the chair, Councillor Shukin, I wondered about the definition of, it says options for future management, and so I can think of things like land use and planning, land use and zoning, ownership and oversight responsibility, land protection covenants, stewardship monitoring, like that idea that came, I think, from, MEASC or PTAS, the Friends of the Bufferland, some idea of having local people involved. Invasive species and trails. Are those the kinds of things when we talk about land management? I'm just wondering where it starts and finishes. And I guess I'm particularly thinking of the words of one of the members of the public, I think a week ago, talking about, you know, water's flowing down now on Neil Road and undercutting the shoulders. And so there's probably work we're going to be doing as council that the Bufferland Working Group won't be doing. And there I'm wondering what the detention pond and that, is that going into the working group now, or is it staying separate? I'm just trying to figure out what's the scope of the work to be done by the working group.
Yeah, well, that, you raise good points, Councillor Gray. And in fact, what the other one too is maintenance, of course, of general maintenance,
Right.
financial impacts. Whoever's on the working group is going to probably find that the task before them balloons mysteriously as we get into things. So yeah, there will be some work that needs to be done to define the scope. But again, the key point for the working group is to identify and evaluate options for the future management of the bufferland. So it is likely to include zoning, because right now it's community recreational 2 and 3, and I don't think there's a plan for a golf course or a mini golf course or whatever that might allow. So yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. I mean, I think you know my disquiet, I've voiced it in other meetings, that setting up a working group to get public input and filter it before it gets to council is puzzling to me. And so I'm not as keen on this process. But we have the idea in the membership there would be people from PTASC and MEASC, and I expect those to be liaison people, given the way the committees are structured. People don't speak on their own behalf. They would be speaking on behalf, so they'd take things back to the committees, that kind of thing. And I wondered, I would like to see or learn a bit more about the criteria. How do we select people if there's a big number of people coming? And then finally, can we have 2 or 3 community members outside of the Neil Road area, or what would the number be?
So right now, the number is set as no more than 9, or up to 9 people. And the number begins to drop pretty quick as to how many people will be on, because Councillor Donaldson and myself are on the committee. We do want good representation from the Neil Road folks, which is here, the PTASC and MEASC, or MEASC, and of course community members as well. So, you know, it'd be great to have a lot of interest in serving on the working group. I know some people in this room probably are interested in it. I think the experience to date is we don't have people busting down the doors to be part of these committees. So we will see what happens. So yeah, one point of note is, as you know, it is council who selects the working group members. So,
Councillor Epp?
Well, along a similar line, the last time when I kind of questioned the need for having this working group, considering all the input that we had previously over the last 2 or 3 years about this, and someone, I can't remember who it was, mentioned that, you know, the input that we had gotten was mainly from the residents close by and not from the general, not from the rest of the community. However, on your membership list, it only lists as in 1 community member. So that still is limiting it just to the people probably that we've already heard of quite extensively.
I need to correct you, Councillor Epp. It says community members.
Oh, I didn't see the little.
Yeah.
Yes.
You gotta watch the little brackets. Community members. Doesn't make any sense, but we will see. But the one thing to keep in mind again is the promise is for 2 information meetings to collect public input. There's, I understand that there will also be, once we start the meetings, there should be an opportunity for public input as well. So there will be multiple avenues for public input. So, okay, thank you.
Hold you to that.
Okay.
Councillor Donaldson?
And will the working group meetings be open to the public?
Well, correct, Tina. I believe that if you form a working group, it has to be open to the public. Yes, so Tina's okay. Yeah.
Councillor Gray?
Yeah, I think to that point, my understanding is that the working group will follow exactly the template for advisory select committees, the confidentiality and the conflict of interest rules and all the rest that applies, because we don't have the authority to set up anything other than select advisory committees. But one thing I would suggest that we do, or advocate that we do, is put an end date on this committee of September 30th or some day when we see, in order, it helps sometimes to work to a timeline. And I think this one is one where we want to finish off so that we can get moving forward. So I'd like to hear about that, and then just one other comment.
So it's already baked in, 6 months from the time it's formed. And it was a very smart move on my part to say from the time it's formed, because we were delayed. I think two meetings were canceled where we could have had this going in December, and I'm not going to call point of order from people laughing at my smartness. But, hey.
Great, I appreciate that. Thanks very much. One final point, and that would be that I would ask that the sort of foundational to this group is that when you get going, we're seeking views on all kinds of things, but I would like to see that the basic idea of this committee is that we're upholding and respecting the reconciliation agreement that created this the buffer land in the first place. And I just think that's really important for us. We have a important relationship with the Shannon First Nation, and this reconciliation agreement is terribly important. And I realize people are worried about things like the detention pond or how many people will be accessed in there. But I think as a council, we're fundamentally abiding by that agreement. The working group would work under that idea.
Marilyn,
go ahead.
That is a great point, Councillor Gray, and that will be a core principle that I abide by and work through as chair. One thing I will point out is I think that the formation of the group in some ways affirms the reconciliation agreement, because we're simply looking at the future of this parcel that has come to us through the land swap. So thanks, it's a great point.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, so to go back to your motion on page 51. So we've got a mover and a seconder. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay.
One opposed.
Sorry? Opposed, sorry. Councillor Gray opposed to Buffer Land Working Group Terms of Reference. Okay, moving along to B.
Thanks, Mayor Little. The next motion is in relation to the Early Ford V8 Club, who we heard from a few weeks ago, and I would move that council approve in principle the Ford and Friends Car Show and Shine in Metchosin, subject to addressing the issues raised around parking, traffic control, washrooms, and site cleanup.
Okay, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Comments? No, seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great, thank you. Okay, Councillor Gray, this is business arising from minutes of the council meeting of February 27th.
Yes, I move that council ask the Metchosin Environmental Advisory Select Committee to meet with the Western Canada Marine Response Corporation to discuss shoreline sensitivities and protection. I'll speak to the seconder.
And this was not the whole of the MEAS committee, but sub or members of the committee, but not quorum. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes. Environment and Natural Areas Committee, and there was some concern about the level of who's meeting who and what made sense. So since we met in that committee, I've spoken with Michael Lowry, who's the person that we're speaking to at the Western Canada Marine Response Corporation, and he's very supportive of this idea that we meet at a technical level. So he would have a number of his team and a number of members from MEASC, and that sounds ideal for him. He suggested then that if MEASC membership meet and talk and figure things out after the meeting and advise council that there should be a follow-up meeting with council, he'd be prepared to engage in that as well.
Okay, super. Anybody else? No? Oh, sorry.
Will this be open to the public, Councillor Gray?
I think this particular occasion we're going to have a meeting without a public participation in order that we can get right down to it and then make a public report out of the meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's so. Okay, well, that. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Councillor Donaldson? Or Shukin, sorry.
Yeah, Sorry, I have to get clarity on this because I had voted to support this, but I thought it was a meeting with WCMRC and MEAS, not a subgroup, and it would be open to the public. So actually,
I think it would be fine if the public attend. The issue for us is that we would like to have a discussion of the people, not so much a formal meeting as if the full committee meets. And I believe that was the reason why we talked to the members rather than.
If I could get some clarification from our Deputy Corporate Officer.
I believe that they were going to ensure that there wasn't quorum, so it wasn't going to be a meeting of a committee. It was just similar to PTAS doing
Their work on the trails, for
yeah,
instance?
exactly. It's just
Okay.
it's the same thing. I mean, if the members of the public wanted to come and observe, but the idea of this was to just strictly meet with the technical members of the committee, and then they would report out.
Okay. You understand that?
So,
I'm happy if the public attend. What I meant was participation in the discussion, just to allow what it is that the WCMRC people are sensitive to the idea that they can have an agenda and meet with some people and not be accosted, because there's a lot of controversy around the issue of spill response and that.
Okay.
So it's to give them the opportunity to meet without a huge fuss.
Through you, Mayor Little, Councillor Gray, will this be open to the public?
Well, let's
Let's
make it open to the public.
advertise. I'm sorry. Will it be
Question
noted
is,
on
will
like
it be
the,
advertised?
Yeah.
It won't be advertised because it's not a meeting.
Okay.
The point of this discussion is to hear what the WMRC have to say, to figure out, we had the people in our previous interactions, which I have not been involved in, the idea was that the WCMRC wants to choose fewer sites to protect on our coastline than what MEASC has previously recommended to council and council has discussed. And so WCMRC went away, and we'd like to have them come back and tell us, what have you done? And if they say, gee, we were going to protect the whole coast, then I guess we're in good shape. The issue is to sort of figure out which are the highlights that they have, that they're going to focus on. They're picking sort of very specific locations that they say are more sensitive than others. It's that kind of a discussion. Our position, MEAS's position at the moment, is protect the whole coastline. So there's not a huge amount there, but I guess there'll be some discussion about the actual nature of the particular sites that are being discussed.
So if I can interject, what WCMRC was looking for is just a safe environment for them to discuss with the MEASC openly.
Yeah.
So they asked for it to be not a meeting, just a discussion between a few members of MEASC and a few of their members. Okay. And then, as Councillor Gray said, that at some point that we may decide to have another meeting, depending on the results of those, and then report to council. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much. I can see this. When I supported this motion initially, I thought it was to have that dialogue with MEASC more directly, and again, heat off WCMRC. Heat isn't a kind of a good conducive for good dialogue. So I'm prepared to support this. I can see the sense of it, but it had changed, and I just wanted to get some clarity. So
Yeah, that's fine. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Anybody opposed? No. Oh. No. Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Okay. So 55. Page 57. This is the request from the fire chief. So this is a memo from Fire Chief Dunlop to the interim CAO, Lynn Tanofsky. She's requesting council a resolution to support a $30,000 grant application. I think we should do it. Moved by Councillor Epps, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? No. With thanks to the fire chief. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Moving to page 59 of the agenda. This is a council report to council from interim CAO and Chief Financial Officer Sulin Tarnowski. Sulin.
This report is just for the council to receive for information in accordance with bylaw 595, which speaks to council's wage adjustment. Like was mentioned by a member of the public earlier, you could see in the attachment to the report on page 63 of the report what previous 12-month CPI consumer price index was for the Victoria area. According to the bylaw, this council's wages will be adjusted by that percentage as specified in the bylaw.
Okay, so it is a council adjustment. The reason why this is, it's not usually brought forward. It's a bylaw that is already established in 2013. We're following the bylaw. The Chief Financial Officer just thought that we should be aware of this and have it in an open and transparent way. It's not that we're doing a council wage increase per se. We're following the bylaw, adjusting the council wages according to the consumer price index. Okay. Does anybody have any comment? Go ahead.
It's not about the topic, but I'm just looking at the bylaw. So it says bylaw 595 on page 61, and then on page 62 at the top it says 506. Is it two separate things, or is it the same thing? Okay.
Yeah, so the bylaw 506 was replaced with the bylaw 595. I think the header just was missed, but good catch.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say that I'm thankful for the remuneration we receive, and also to recognize that a third of it is allowance for expenses, and so that means that we don't need to send small bills or whatever to the district. We handle them ourselves, and that's some comfort to know that it's all included. It's a nice way of working.
And saying that if you have expenses, you can submit them at conferences, that kind of thing. You can submit them for approval. Okay, so I'll take a motion to receive this report.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we've got the public communication report statistics for January 2023. January 2023. Do we have any comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? No? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we've got the Metchosin Building Inspection Department, January and February on page 69. Does anybody have any comments, questions for staff? No? Okay.
Move for C.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The monthly bylaw and animal care services report is on page 71 of your agenda. Does anybody have any comments regarding this? Major highlights from depositing of fill, land use, unsightly premises. If not, I'll take a motion to receive. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And correspondence. So we have correspondence from the Township of Esquimalt. This is regarding municipal approaches to lowering of speed limits. Does anybody want to comment regarding this? No? Okay.
I couldn't understand the letter particularly. What is it telling us?
It's telling us that there is some impetus in some municipalities, such as Metchosin, to lower speed limits. We've already done it in Metchosin in the core area, and it's just a mechanism of approaching the province on lowering the speed limits, as well as the implications cost-wise. So they are, it's really lobbying the provincial government. That's what this letter is all about, as I read it, to consider, what did they say, empowering municipalities to establish default speed limits on streets within the respective jurisdictions through changes through the Motor Vehicle Act. Anyways, that's what the letter's all about.
And they seem able to do that, but there's some hitch, which isn't clear. Is it that they're not, they can do it by pilot, but not some other way, and they want the pilots in place, or?
I think you can do it by pilot, but you can't do it permanently, as I understand it, but I don't know. Anyways, she would like to request the province's move on this. It must be a very important issue in Esquimalt.
Thank you.
Okay. Move receipt by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws, other business, and question period. We have time for question period. If anybody has any questions, up to 20 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, Councillor.
Do you want to come to the microphone? If you can state your name and your street, that'd be great.
Leonore Davidson, 900 Speyside Lane, Souk. That's what it says. Anyways, Councillor Gray, could you tell me, I'm sort of, got behind a little bit. So how many people are actually on the MEASC committee now?
1 second. I don't think it's not. Just 1 second here, we'll count them out. Well, there's Rick Perron, Bill Cave, Andy McKinnon, myself, representing council, Aaron Vandewater, Marilee Hoyne, and Anna Hall. 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And so the subcommittee that's going to talk to the Western Canada Marine response, how many are on yet?
We haven't canvassed the members. I would expect 3 or 4.
Okay. May I ask who they are? Is that acceptable?
The members of the committee are Rick Perron, Aaron Vandewater, Bill Cave, Andy McKinnon, Anna Hall, myself, and Marilee Hoyne.
Gary Fletcher.
Gary Fletcher.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't it Gary Fletcher on it too? All right, thank you very much.
I just wanted to bring it to your attention to reference the Esquimalt letter. The City of Victoria brought that to UBCM about 8 years ago, and the UBCM lobbied the province, and to the best of my recollection, it didn't get passed. Municipalities got the authority to lower speed limits, but the 50-kilometer minimum is a provincial guideline.
Gotcha.
Councillor Epp?
And two, one of the reasons I would say anything about this is because right now in the budget, we have a huge increase in our cost of our signs because we're having to upgrade them to the proper provincial standards. And so, while I would love to see lower speed limits in Metchosin, I think that that for right now, that we just have to stick with what we've got, because anything else is going to be even more costly than what we're already showing as far as those kind of expenditures.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
Jennifer Burgess, 3827 Duke Road. To Councillor, through the chair, to Councillor Donaldson, the 21st is the next budget.
Yes, I believe so.
Yes. Would that be presented as the sort of final stage that used to be presented by Sam Weller, where there were major posters of the capital reserves and other areas? Will council be at that stage on the 21st?
No, we won't be. We have the capital budget to do, and then we'll have the one-timers after that. And then sometime in April, we're hoping to have an open house for the public with charts and that sort of thing.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Thank you. Just looking for that information. Thank you.
If I could. I just want to correct the record. There's 8 members of MEASC.
And you're going to take them all to the subcommittee, is that correct?
No.
Just to clarify on that, so there's 8 members on the committee. There'll be less than quorum on this subcommittee of members yet to be identified. Okay. Okay, seeing no other questions, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Dodson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.